Maybe God hates Mustangs, I don't know, but it's not my fault. I rode motorcycles with a bunch of guys, and they were going to do a cross-country trip where we were all going to put all of our bikes in containers, ship them out to California through various ways, fly out, whatever, and then ride them all back. Well, due to some work commitments, a few other things, I couldn't fly out. I couldn't make the road trip out, so I ended up having to just sort of drive out and catch up. I contacted Budget Rental Car, and I picked a car up at Hartsfield, which was a little Toyota Corolla, just tan interior. The tires were probably tan. It was just tan all over. It was the most invisible, nondescript little car. And I'm not a huge guy. I'm 6'1", but it was a little cramped and a little tight. But, this was going to be my chariot. The license plate on my truck says all-nighter. I've prided myself at staying up for days on end. When I paint a mural, sometimes I'll stay awake for 3-4 straight days, just painting day and night. I can just do that. And that's just one of my superpowers. So I head out and drive across country, and it's fantastic. It's just, I'm seeing parts of the country I've never seen before. Across the Mississippi for the first time. I'm seeing the landscape change, and it's great to drive at night and to watch the sun come up as you're driving. I've driven across this country in about 43 hours, which is not a great time, but I was not trying to set any records. I was in a Toyota Corolla, just trying not to get a ticket and trying to catch up with my motorcycle. So I get to San Francisco early morning, meet up with the guys that have got my bike, and one of them follows me to the rental car place to return the car. And this is 20 years ago, but at the time, they didn't have the key drops, all that kind of stuff. I go and talk to the guy, here's your car, and he kind of looks at the paperwork for a minute, and he types on the computer and looks on the paperwork and, types on the computer some more. Says, hold on for a second. And he goes in the back, he gets the guy, another guy comes out, he looks at the paperwork, types in the computer, calls somebody on the phone, kind of looks at me, looks at the car, puts the phone down. Said, where'd you get this car from? I said, Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta. Goes outside, he starts checking the VIN number, and he's checking the door, and and he said, when did you rent this car? And so the night before last. And so he types in the computer some more, and he's a little perturbed, and I'm like, is there a problem? And he said, well, that's an 8-day rental. And I said, well, I know, but I just drove it straight through, and the problem turned out that, back then, if you picked a car up like after 4, they didn't charge you for that day. And if you got it back before 11, they didn't charge you for that day. So I really only had the 1-day rental from Atlanta to San Francisco. And the computer was not having it. The computer was like, that's an 8-day trip, doesn't compute it. Now the guy starts thinking that maybe I'm trying to launder a stolen car or something. So he's comparing the VIN, and he's reading the car, and he just does not want to take this car back for some reason. I don't know what he thought I was trying to do. There was just something that didn't compute with this guy, and he was not having it. But, they dug around, and there was nothing wrong with renting a car and returning it, and, 43 hours later. But the fact that it was well over its first oil change and had, this copious amounts of miles on it for 43 hours, he was not happy. But it, it is what it is. So he took the car back, and we continue on the trip. The trip was exciting, but a few days into the trip, my motorcycle just had a catastrophic failure and was not going to make the trip. And I had limped it from where we were at in California through Death Valley on the 4th of July, actually, which don't ever do that. It's like driving in a hairdryer. Made it to Vegas, tried to get the bike fixed there, but it was just not going to happen. So the guys on the trip, I'm like, go on without me, I'll sort it out. My wife at the time was with me, so I decided, okay, look, we're in the Southwest, we're here to see something. The bike trip didn't work out, but let's don't go out like that. So I called Budget Rental Car up again, and I said, hey, what do you got that's cool? And they said, well, we got a convertible Mustang. It literally just came in today. It's got 4 miles on it. I'm like, that sounds fantastic. We take off, and we only had about 3 days. I had to get back to Georgia with the bike to get back to work. So I got 3 days to kill in the Southwest in this rental car. And again, kind of being my first road trip ever, I didn't want to miss anything. So, since I've kind of learned to go a little slowly and process things. But at the time, I just wanted to shopping spree style, just frantically run through every national park and monument I could possibly see, So we just take off, and this is Grand Canyon and Four Corners and Castle Rock and Moab and the Arches, and just blowing through the Southwest. And I always really wanted to go to Colorado too. So, hey, we could cut up through Moab and go to Colorado. That sounds great. And So we get to Moab, and I'd been an off-roader and always been excited to see this place. But of course, I'm now in the least appropriate vehicle, but I wanted to see something. So we're in this Mustang convertible, and I see this little dirt road off to the side. It looks like it kind of went out towards some pretty rocks and stuff. So hey, let's go try that. It's a dirt road. This car can do it. So I drive on the dirt road, and it starts getting a little steeper, but the car's doing fine, and, driving and a little steeper, a little rockier, and, my wife time's getting a little nervous. I'm like, we're fine, we're fine. I'm just excited. I just want to see what's around the next curve. So I kept going, and now we started going downhill again, and, it kept getting steeper and steeper, a little bit of gravel on hard rocks, and a little steeper and steeper, and, I'm not sliding or anything, but it just starts to turn into more of a Jeep trail, and I'm like, okay, it's probably time to turn around, and and if you've been to Moab or somewhere in the Southwest like that, it's like the old Roadrunner cartoons. It's just like a cliff with a little shelf on it, and another cliff, and kind of nothing dangerous, but kind of a narrow road. No guardrail or anything like that. And I go to stop the car, and I'm just going to back out the way I came. That seemed like a good idea, so I put it in reverse, and of course the tires kind of spin, and the rear kind of walks over towards the cliff a little bit. So I stop, and okay, I move forward about 10 feet. Try it again, a little more over, and each time I try to back up, the car just wants to kind of spin in the gravel, and as it spins, it just wants to walk over towards the edge. And of course, that's the side my wife's on, and she's not happy. So let's just keep going. This trail just gets steeper and steeper. I don't really have an option to go back out, and it's like a Monday or something. So it's not like, it's a weekend with a bunch of guys in Jeeps and trucks can maybe pull me out or something. So we basically just kept going. Eventually the road just starts getting steeper and steeper, and I go to stop and kind of plan on it, and the car just starts to kind of shimmy a little bit. I'm thinking, oh, this isn't good. There's this huge drop over here and a huge wall over here. So we just kind of slide down, and there's this little ledge in the rock, and the car just kind of, it wasn't huge or anything, but the car just kind of skates off the ledge. It just makes this god-awful scraping noise just up underneath the car, and gets on the bottom of it, and the road thankfully kind of leveled out and crossed a little creek and turned out to get onto a regular road, and we were able to go back out that way. But I get to the stop sign, I could hear a scraping kind of sound under the car. Not good. So I get out, and immediately I noticed that the big ground effects piece between the front wheel and the back wheel on my side is just gone. And the one on her side was mostly gone. That's what was dragging. And the tailpipe in the rear, which is just a little V6, but the tailpipe was a little squished, and the valance was not quite attached in the back anymore. And I'm not one to tear up anybody's things. I don't trash rental cars on purpose, but I did immediately pat myself on the back for checking that little $12 damage waiver. I'm like, well, they're not going to like this, but it wasn't intentional, and I'm really sorry, and I'm sure I'll make it work. She was a very rule follower type person. Now she's not happy. You're going to be in trouble. And I was like, no, I checked the box. It's okay. And you're going to get in trouble. But now we got to get the car back to Vegas and get a van or a truck or something. So I've called ahead, and I'd reserved a truck to put my motorcycle in so we can drive the truck with the bike, fallen soldier style, back to Georgia. So I'm having a great time. She's actually sleeping. I'm just, sailing. And again, this is not a great driver's car, but I'm having a fantastic time. The top's down, sun's out, just blasting. And on the horizon, though, I see what looks like a mountain range, and I was like, cool, I've already seen the Rockies. It's really exciting, but the mountains just didn't look right, and it was just this wall with kind of looked like snow, but dirty snow on the top. And as I'm getting closer, I realized that it's a lot closer than I think. It looked like it was 100 miles out on the horizon, but it was actually very close, and it was not a mountain range. It was a sandstorm. And it's like those ones that you've seen these pictures, the guys that served over in the Middle East with just these big walls of sand coming at you. I'm like, oh my God. So I pull over, put the top up, kind of wake her up, like, hey, check that out. And so it doesn't look good. So, we're thinking, there's literally nothing for 100 miles in any direction. Like, where do we go? She tells me, let's try to beat it. So I'm like, wow, I got to actually get a permission from my wife to go fast. So I'm pegging this thing out, but it's coming closer and coming closer. And eventually it's just on us. And again, it's, big winds, nothing like a tornado or anything, but you can just hear the sand just pelting this car. Just this awful, sounded like a snake hissing and a sandblaster. It was this pretty kind of a candy orange color, like a silver base with a candy orange over. It's a beautiful color car. And oh my God, it was just getting pelted. And so, driving through it, and there's lightning from all the static, and just tops kind of whipping around. And again, the winds aren't that bad, but anyway, so we finally get to this little gas station, and, pull in under their gas cover, but there's nothing again, the sand's just coming sideways. This car just gets hammered, and, finally the winds die down, and, get out to go inside, and the power's been knocked out. And I noticed that the building actually had like an exit on all four sides. And talking to the lady inside, they actually do that on purpose because these sandstorms are sort of common, and they want you to be able to get into the store not on the side that the wind was blowing. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But anyway, so we get inside and get a drink, get a few snacks, and go back out to the car. And it looked like your favorite Hot Wheels car from childhood, where you had played with it so much that all of the paint was just missing from the leading edges of the fenders and the wheel arches and the hood, and the whole thing was now just this. Could be pretty cool now, but it was just this like satin kind of matte metallic orange now. It was no longer the shiny candy color it used to be. The plastic headlight covers were sort of cataract, like an old dog or something. Like they were just completely hazed over. The bodywork was metal, but the sort of nose piece of the Mustang was this McDonald's yellow color, and the paint was mostly missing from that. So it was just this yellow flaking through. This car looked like it had been on the bottom of the ocean, and it's literally 3 days old. So we get back on the road, and she's not even talking to me at this point. She's convinced we're going to go to jail. And again, like, there's nothing illegal about getting in a sandstorm. This wasn't my fault. This was an act of God, if anything. Maybe God hates Mustangs, I don't know, but it's not my fault. We've lost some time due to the sandstorm, and I'm really trying to get back in time. So we just hurtle through the night, and somewhere south of Provo, around like Beaver, Utah, the wind picks up again. No sandstorm, but now it's tumbleweeds. They're actually like in the movies. I never really thought that, but they really just these big barrel things just come blowing through. And we're in kind of a hurry, and I'm on the highway, and I'm like dodging them. And it's kind of like a video game. It's like Frogger or something. You see them coming out. And of course, it's at night, so they're just kind of coming into the headlights at the last second. I'm trying to swerve around a few, but I don't want to crash the car over a tumbleweed, so I have to hit a few of them. And then eventually I just caught one big one that still had like a big root ball on the bottom of it. And I hit it, and I just heard the pop of breaking glass. The headlights were plastic. This was like the fog light in the front of the car. And we get back to Vegas and go back to stay at the Stardust Casino, which is still around there. Spend a night at Stardust. Go to take the Mustang back. And again, this is like something out of some 80s movie. I mean, it's like Ferris Bueller's Day Off when they launched the Ferrari at the back. This car is totaled. So I go inside, and it's a pretty young guy at the counter, and I just said, "Hey man, I'm here to return the Mustang. I've got some bad news. It experienced a sandstorm and a few other mishaps. I'm very sorry, and I just want to work with you, whatever I need to do to make it right." And this guy, I don't know if he just either wasn't a car guy or just was the most laid back, chill rental car employee, or maybe because it's Vegas, stuff happens to these cars all the time. I don't know. He just kind of looked out and he said, "Wow, okay, well, you signed the damage waiver, so it's okay." I'm like, okay. Like, do you need to sign something? Like, do you need pay, like police report? He's like, no, we got insurance for this sort of thing. You're good, man. And I was like, cool. And just as I'm walking out, his boss comes storming in. "What happened to the Mustang?" I'm like, oh crap. So I turn around and trying to save this guy who just been so nice to me. I said, "Sir, I'm very sorry. I rented the car 3 days ago. We got in a sandstorm, experienced another mishap with the tumbleweed and the ground effects, and this was not on purpose, but I could fill out a statement." And so now he's mad. He's talking about calling the police, and this again, back on the phone again. So he's on the phone with Budget again. I'm thinking like, man, it wasn't 5 days ago. Somebody else was on the phone with Budget. So he's on the phone. He's looking out. He's going out checking the numbers on the car. I'm thinking like, oh my God, they are never going to rent me a car again. So he's not happy, but nothing really could do. And again, this is why you should always get the waiver, whether it's $12, $18 now, get it because you never know. So I go over to the rental desk. I've been at the return desk, go to the rental desk, and I go to pick up the truck that I had reserved, which was supposed to be an F-150, something big enough. It's kind of a pretty big bike I had at the time. But I go to get it, and it's this little like Ford Ranger flare side with the hard tonneau cover on the back, which there's no way this bike is even fitting in the truck, let alone with the tonneau cover. I feel like I'm already on thin ice with Budget, and asking to upgrade my vehicle or what happened doesn't seem like a great idea, but I got no choice. So I go stand in line. Now, the lady in front of me at the rental desk now is some fancy lady from New England somewhere, and or New York or something. She is chewing the lady at the desk out because somebody had brought her rental car around and had not turned the air conditioner on first, and it was hot, and she felt very insulted that she had to get in a hot car. She's chewing this lady out. It's like Steve Martin in Plane, Trains, and Automobiles chewing out the rental desk lady. And, you know, it's not that lady's fault, obviously, but she's taking it like a trooper. So the lady stomps off, and there's an old saying in the South that you catch more flies with honey. So I'm unhappy about being given the wrong vehicle, but it wasn't this lady's fault. So I just kind of, straightened up, and I just said, ma'am, I've come across a little problem with my rental car, and I think you might be the person that could fix it. Can you help me, please? And she said, well, sweetheart, I'd be happy to. So I explained to her the problem, big motorcycle, small truck, asked if I could take the fiberglass cover off. She said, no, those are drilled in. You can't take those off. And she said, well, we have Lincoln Town cars. Do you think it would fit in the trunk? I kind of look out back. This motorcycle was a little over 9 feet long, 3 feet wide. It was not going to fit in the trunk, but I thanked her for the suggestion. I said, well, thank you, ma'am, but I believe it's a little bigger than that. I'm going to need a van or something. And she said, well, what did they give you, that little truck? I said, yes, ma'am. I thought it was going to be a full-size truck, but it turned out to be real little. She said, well, that's just never going to work for you. Well, tell you what, I'll give you a full-size van for the same price as the little truck. I said, that'd be great. Thank you so much. Put the bike in the van, bought some ratchet straps, hooked it in the back, took off cross country. Now we're camping in the van on either side of a motorcycle with like the exhaust here and the straps. In Arkansas, stopped for the night. I went inside to get something to eat. Somebody tried to break into the van, I guess to steal the motorcycle, so they smashed the window out of the van. Now the van's full of broken glass, and I'm thinking like, budget rental car is gonna kill me. So we make it back to Athens with no mishap. They go explain the window in the van. They had actually kind of tried to crowbar the door, broke the glass out of the door. The door's gonna have to be replaced. Again, not my fault. I think to this day there's probably a picture of me somewhere at Budget Rental Car with a red line through it that says, do not rent cars to this guy.
Let's be honest, if you're